Let's look at our refactor now using flexbox. And if we compare, well, first of all, the code, 038 refactor challenge, 03 refactored flexbox. All right. And if we look at the HTML, you can see what changed right there. So I added anchor tags because I was like, well, if these are going to be links, let's make them links. So I added the anchor tags. But everything else in the HTML is the same. And now let's look at the CSS. That's kind of wonky. I'm going to move this one over. There we go. And then I just want a little more room for my CSS. That's pretty good. So in the CSS, I added border 1 pic solid hot pink, and I added this important. I don't know if we've talked about that. I don't think we did. We should have talked about that when we talked about CSS specificity. But this is important, and you should hardly ever use it. You should only use it for debugging. That's it. Never, ever, ever, ever use it in production. Because if you're having to do that, it means that you didn't write your code well, and you need to go rewrite your code. And what important does is it totally overrides all CSS specificity and the specificity calculator, and it just says, to hell with whatever you've calculated, apply this, apply it. And if there's conflicting importance, it applies the last one applied. And your code's way messed up in that case if you've got that going on. But, you know, because I have borders set down below with higher specificity, if I didn't have important, it wouldn't show it. And so I'm going to show it. Anyhow, here is the look difference, right? This is what we had with inline. This is what we have with flex. So you can see I just changed that menu. And it's not, you know, greatly styled, but it's like, you know, nice kind of thing to go for. Like, I would prefer this. It just looks better. But if these were styled right, this could look better. So that's a starting point. And you have to get the designer in here to play with colors and size and all that stuff. All right. So that's the look difference. Nothing changed with body, font size, and then background, or whatever sound I did right there. Image repeat position, attachment fixed. Oh, did I have that on the last one? Attachment fixed. Oh, I did. All right. So the attachment fixed is allowing the image to be in the background. We didn't talk about that in the last video, I don't think. That was pretty cool. This was the point, actually, when I realized, oh, crap, I got to go back and teach you attachment fixed, background attachment. And then we have the H1 color, and that didn't change, and nav. And so the nav is now display flex and justify content center. Before, for the nav, I just had width, 50% margin, 2rem auto, text align center. And so that's what put it into the center. And now I'm saying, you know what, make it a flex container and justify content, flex container. The default flex direction is row, which means the primary axis is row, which means justify content acts on the row. So center this on the row, right? And if I put on my debugging, then I could look at this and see all that. And so I'm looking for nav, and nav is in the header, and it is display flex, and it's holding the it's holding the UL. So here's the UL right there. And so nav is this big container here, and it's centering this deal right here, right? So nav goes left to right all the way across, you know, block level element. So that's the nav, and that's how I centered this right there, the UL. And so we could see the UL if we wanted, if we went border 10 pics solid green, I don't know. And then I got to take off important, otherwise I won't see it, right? But there's the UL, and that's centered within. And so this is like good for you to see, because it's kind of like a way to debug and just take a look and what is going on the page, right? Like that UL, that UL is centered within the nav, right? So the nav is the blue and the green is the UL. And when I turn this guy on, it's going to overwrite all those. And this is also a really good thing to do. And you want to make sure that, like, okay, there's that whole container, there's this whole container, right? There's this stuff here, right? So that one is a section. And for the sections, what did we have for the formatting? Height, 25 rem. And so we could bring this down to, like, look at the sections and figure out what's going on with them. So I'll take one of these from here and just come down and look at a section. And let's see, what does a section look like? Pow. So there are the sections, right? Well, how are they getting in part way. Why aren't they going all the way to the edge? So let's come up here and get the green one. And where does section end? Section is in main. And so let's go find main. Is there a main on here? Let's add a main. So there's my section. And main. Pal. And there's main. And so we're looking for, like, is it like, you know, padding or margin on one of those that's like setting these off. So I'm thinking section has a margin of 2 rem. If we take that off, and that's 2 rem all around, that's what is making the sections kind of come in. And so that allows us to see that. And if we put that back in, right, that's giving it a little bit of space. So you want to understand how each of your containers are working. We talked about, you know, containers when we talked about flexbox, and everything's going to go in a container, and then you want to like put your containers and organize them on the page. So you want to see your containers and because when you look at somebody's code, you don't want the containers to like be wonky. You want them to be like filling in the space they should be filling in, and not just be like, you know, hey, I've got some little, like right there around hello world right here, some little chunk, which is like the containers just, you know, and I've done all these wacky things with moving it over with margin or something. It's like, no, get big container and then, you know, justify content center and I don't know, that kind of stuff. But anyhow, this technique of like just checking out all of your containers and what they're doing, that's super important. Just make sure I took out everything. All right, so we left off with the nav, right? And the nav is holding the UL. And the UL is also display flex and flex flow row wrap. And so the UL, all these are going to be flex items, right? All the children. And they're going to be in a row. And if it gets too short, they're going to wrap. And so if we brought this over and just keep doing this, right, they're going to wrap. And I can make that better probably by doing, so here's the UL and display flex, flex flow wrap, and justify content center. And that way when they wrap, like those are still centered, right? But now when they wrap, they aren't going to be all over on the left, and that just looks a little bit better, right? It's just centering them. So that's a nice improvement. And then we have the LI, and so the LI margin 2 rem is the same as before, margin 2 rem. And right, and before we had inline block, but we're now achieving that with the UL display flex and flex flow row wrap and justify content center. And then I added this, right? 1 pixel border around it that's blue, rounded the edges, gave it a width, gave it a height. And so that gave us that blue and width and height. And then LI hover and color, the font becomes red. And then I added the anchor tags width, height, display flex for the anchor tag. So I could center the first child of the anchor tag, which is these texts. This is a text node. It's holding text. That's actually a node, even though it has no tag. We talk about these tags like the document object model as nodes, right? So when a document is parsed or rendered by a browser, it turns all those tags into nodes. But even though you don't have a tag around here, that's a text node, and so they're the first children of the anchor tags. So with an anchor tag, you could do display flex, and then you could center that. And so just to see what that does visually, right? Oop, everything's on the left, but again, I could use text align center maybe, but I'm sticking with flexbox in this one. And then border radius 5 pixels, cool. And then hovering on the anchor, make it ghost white. And the section stuff, I think that's all the same. Section, height, text line margin, height, text line margin. The colors are all the same. So that's my flexbox solution, and that's the refactoring process. And I think this is a really cool, like, look at what we're doing now, right? Like, sweet. It's looking cool. You know, we're getting some stuff going here. Like, that's okay. This page is okay. You know, you could build something like this for somebody and click and click and click and click and click and have some pictures and content and arrange that pictures and content in this container, you know, and it's the like Bob's pool cleaning service, and you could sell that or help somebody out, help a friend out. It's like, it's cool. It's cool. All right. So I'm excited about the next section where we are going to do This one right here. Kabow. Yeah, I really like that image. And then we're going to work on that to make that look super cool. And in our document right here, I'm going to go down to where we were. Oh, I just totally flew past it. Background and refactor challenge and flexbox refactor. So we did the refactor challenge with a section overview, analyzing the starting files, in-block refactor and flexbox refactor. Like, I'm not going to review that. Like, there's nothing there really to review. We didn't learn any new tags or CSS selectors. Just checking that, I don't think. And yeah, so we're just going to move on to the next section, and the next section is going to be doing the full page background, which we've already been seeing and above the fold stuff, but now we're going to build out, you know, that one site right there. So we'll just practice some more. Yay! See you in the next video.